Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me in the series Freemasonry and Satanism, number 70, part 2. Secret Societies and Subversive Movements by Nestor Webster. Pretty explosive information. On part 1, I got a comment back from a viewer who said that Nestor Webster was debunked, that she would write anything for money, that it's all bogus, fake information. Ironically, everything she writes matches all the other books. Protocols of Zion, debunked, bogus information. Anything written about the Jewish people, the Illuminati, sky spraying, the school shootings, Batman shootings, and all this other college shooting being faked drama to help promote the gun confiscation laws and gun control laws because they seriously want to disarm Americans. Why? They create the situation where these loons, crazed young men, go shoot up people, seemingly on prescriptions, medication, seeing psychologists, doing very weird things. So a minuscule, less than 0.0001% or whatever, and who knows if they graduated from Project Montauk or Project Paperclip or Project MK Ultra Mind Control. And even the government has passed laws saying they can use situations like this to teach the public, train the public, mind control the public, to follow or go with the party line, the government line. So God forbid anybody should say anything about the government, because then you'll be deemed an anti-government belligerent. Even if we know that there were co-conspirators on 9/11, truckloads of gold apparently were shipped from underneath the buildings during 9/11. The day before, Rumsfeld said trillions were missing from the Pentagon prior to 9/11. 2008, when they crashed a system, they gave themselves trillions of dollars. And in 1913, December 21st, they created the Federal Reserve, which meant that they controlled the U.S. exactly what Rothschild says. I don't care who is president, who rules the countries, as long as I control the money. What did Rockefeller say? Competition is a sin. So who's behind all this? And I didn't know a lot of what I'm going to share on this video. I didn't know the Jewish people were evicted, forced out of France. I didn't know they were forced out of England. I didn't know they were forced out of Europe. All this stuff I'm learning as I go here. And then the United States during the early 1920s, plus before and after, they had congressional hearings about the Jewish problem. What's the Jewish problem? They don't teach us anything in school. I'm learning as I research. So anyways, chapter 15 is called The Real Jewish Problem. Nestor Webster, Secret Societies and Subversive Movements. So why don't I read, and you can decide what you want to think. In considering the immense problem, remember this is 1924, the same time that Henry Ford was writing his books, where he bought the Dearborn Independent newspaper and started publishing some of the facts about the Jewish problem, they were having congressional hearings about the Jewish problems. And like I said, it was just seconds ago, they were banned from France. They were banned from England. They were banned from Europe. They were thrown out of Canaan, the Palestinians' land. Why? Is it an anti-Semitic question to ask why? They hate Christianity. They hate Jesus. They're trying to destroy it. Why? Is it anti-Semitic to ask why? They're trying to create a new world order, a new age. They're the ones who are promoting the gay agenda and all the other decadent thing, like Ashley Madison, secret rendezvous to find somebody to cheat on your spouse with, adultery, transgender, pansexual, have sex with anything, bisexuality, pedophilia with children, and then of course the Kabbalah, Satanism, witchcraft, abducting people, drinking their blood, eating their bodies, sacrificing them to death. Is this all real? Seems the more I research it, it's all too real. So in considering the immense problem of the Jewish power, remember they control the Federal Reserve since 1913, and they've crashed the system 8 or 9 times, reaping in everything, taking it all from the public, buying it for pennies on the dollar. They don't control just the USA money supply. They got monetary money systems. And if they control everything for the last couple hundred years, and we've been having all these wars and all these disasters, we can credit that to them. The Illuminati, the Freemasonic lodges, the Rosicrucians, the Zionist Jewish and other Jewish people who are in cahoots in high power places and own all the corporations and all the businesses, and acquired them through interesting means, to be polite. Perhaps the most important problem in which the modern world is confronted. Nestor Webster says this. I'm reading books. I suppose it's still part of the Constitution of the United States to have free speech. Well, probably not for long. Hillary was in the news trying to work on eliminating the Second Amendment, disarming America. So it says here, it is necessary to divest oneself of all prejudices and to inquire in a spirit of scientific detachment whether any definite proof exists that a concerted attempt is being made by Jewry to achieve world domination and to obliterate the Christian faith. Well, I got hundreds of hours of videos on YouTube, and I've read a couple hundred books, hundreds of magazines, watched thousands of videos, printed out and read thousands and thousands of press releases. We've all seen what about 9/11, the inside job, destroying all the countries in the Middle East, defaming the Muslims and the Arabs as supposedly being demonic creatures, and also now saying that Christians are haters. So they're definitely on a road to something. That such a purpose has existed amongst the Jews in the past has been shown throughout the earlier chapters of this book. The conception of the Jews as the chosen people, who must eventually rule the world, forms indeed the basis of Rabbinic Judaism. It is customary in this country to say that we should respect the Jewish religion, and this would certainly be our duty were the Jewish religion founded, as it is popular supposed, solely on the Old Testament. For although we do not consider ourselves bound to observe the ritual of the Pentateuch, we find no fault with the Jews for carrying out what they conceive of to be their religious duties. We believe in freedom of religion, but as I've said many times, does that still mean that we have to support and allow the expanding church of Satan, abducting of people and sacrificing them to death? and some of their other religious goings-on. I say there's where you draw the line. The sun was shining on me. We find no fault with the Jews for carrying out what they conceive to be their religious duties. Moreover, although the Old Testament depicts the Jews as a favored race, a conception which we believe to have been superseded by the Christian dispensation, whereby all men are declared equal in the sight of God. I believe that. I don't think what they call us Gentiles, or what the Freemasons call us profane, should jump at joy to be their slaves. You? But the Jewish religion now takes its stand on the Talmud rather than on the Bible. The modern Jew, one of its latest Jewish translators observes, is the product of the Talmud. The Talmud itself accords to the Bible only a secondary place. So they've replaced the Old Testament, the Bible, with the Talmud. You're probably asking, what's the Talmud? Thus the Talmud treatise Sophorim says, the Bible is like water, the Mishnah is like wine, and the Gemara is like spiced wine. Now the Talmud is not a law of righteousness for all mankind, but a meticulous code applying to the Jew alone. All right, moving on. No human being outside the Jewish race could possibly go to the Talmud for help or comfort. So the Talmud is just for the Jews. It does not apply to Christians, Muslims, anybody else in the world. Small problem I have with my outdoor productions when my neighbors crank up their lawnmowers. So back to the book. This is interesting stuff. People need to know this. Secret Societies and Subversive Movements. One might look through its pages, the Talmud, in vain for any such splendid rule of life as that given by the prophet Micah. He hath shown thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. So that's not in the Talmud. In the Talmud, on the contrary, as Drach points out, the precepts of justice, of equality, of charity towards one's neighbors are not only not applicable with regard to the Christian, but constitute a crime in anyone who would act differently. The Talmud, this is the book of many of the Jews. There used to be a book called, well, there is still, but a lot of the Jewish people would go by the Torah or by the Old Testament. And the Torah was more of a book of love, teaching like what Jesus would teach. The Old Testament, Torah, like when Moses went up to the mountain to get the 2 tablets, the 10 Commandments, and he came down the mountain, and all the Jewish people, I don't know if all, but the Jewish people, had collected the gold and made a golden calf, an effigy. And, of course, we're having for all practical purposes, a pagan ritual celebration, drinking and orgy sex and all that. And Moses even smashed the tablets and punished them and had to go back up to the mountain for 40 days to get the law, the rules for living, the commandments for the Jewish Hebrew people. They were called Hebrews back then. And 2 new tablets. So my point is, the Torah and the Old Testament were the good documents if the Jews were going by those documents. So when they're going by the Talmud was a book that they created over the hundreds or thousands of years that I guess was like the Protocols of Zion, but like a law book on how to behave and acquire domination over the non-Jews, the Gentiles, which are called cattle. So the Talmud is called a very nasty book, if you want a working man's opinion like mine. They don't allow it to be translated into English and be acquired by the outsiders. It's so horrible on what it tells them they should do. Horrible. That's their Bible, the Talmud. So if they don't do what it says in there, which are horrible things, then it's actually a crime. They can't have mercy and compassion to we Christians or other people who are not Jews. That's not what their Talmud tells them to do. They're supposed to rob us, fleece us, have sex with our women and young boys, whatever. And it's not a sin for them. I don't know all about this. Not a religious scholar, but if you have any questions, go look up the Talmud. T-A-L-M-U-D. It's like it's down and dirty, right in the mud, and it even has mud in Talmud. No sense of humor. The Talmud expressly forbids one to save a non-Jew from death. So their Talmud says, if they were walking along and your cart wheel had broke and you were under the cart, they expressly forbids them to save a non-Jew from death. So I suppose they would have to just leave you there to die. To restore lost goods, etc. To him, to have pity on anybody. I don't make this stuff up. But I do read books. And I am trying to figure out what's going on in the world right now and what's with this New World Order thing and this New Age stuff and this promotion of the gay agenda and the rest of the decadent programming in the news with Bruce Jenner turning into Caitlyn Jenner. And apparently even the daughter was in the news, the Jenner young lady, who had nothing to want to do with her dad, said even the word F her, he can go F himself or something. It's a horrible state of affairs what they're doing to the people of the world in the United States with the TV programming, the lies in the media, the fake shootings, even that college shooting recently. I didn't know this, but apparently the government had given that college $1 million or more to have set up a police academy, and they were even having fake police exercises where somebody would be coming in shooting up the school. All these shootings, Sandy Hook, everywhere. 911, they were having fake war games with planes in the sky and had shut down the National Air Force, Air Defense. The London bombings, they were having fake bombings on trains. So they're using this propaganda to bring about, from my research, my conclusions, a communist dictatorship. We slaves, the ones they allow to live, we own nothing, and they are better than us, higher IQ, and should rule over the world. New World Order. And they control even the Pope, the Jesuits, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasonic lodges, the Illuminati, the banksters, the Hollywood, the elites, the politicians, the senators. All puppets. How far the Talmud has contributed to the antisocial tendencies of the modern Judaism is shown by the fact that the Karatites living in the south of Russia, the only body of Jews which takes its stand on the Bible, not on the Talmud, of which it only accepts such portions as are in accordance with Bible teachings, have always shown themselves good subjects of the Russian Empire, and have therefore enjoyed equal rights with the Russian people around them. Catherine the Great particularly favored the Karatites. So the Karatites, Jews, followed the Old Testament, and they were well received. But the ones that follow the Talmud, who says you can't even save a person from death, or restore his goods, or give him any kind of pity, it's actually a crime in the Talmud. One can understand why the Jews were once banned from France, banned from England, banned from Europe, treated harshly and controlled in Russia, banned from the land of Canaan, Palestine, now called Israel, that they acquired through devious means with the Balfour Agreement in World War I. And of course, not all Jews, as it says here, the ones who go by the Old Testament, get along with everybody. But a lot of them don't go that way. They go with the Talmud, and these are the Zionist Jews, the bankster Jews, and many other people into the occult and Satanism, trying to force their will on the rest of us of the world. My opinion, from reading many books. And I keep telling you, when you watch my videos, take some notes, go look it up, get the book. Don't believe me. Make up your own mind. If I found a person under a vehicle, I would try to save him. You? Thus, even the Jews are not unanimous in supporting the Talmud. Indeed, as we have already seen, many Jews have protested against it as a barrier between themselves and the rest of the human race. The Talmud. But it is in the Kabbalah, still more in the Talmud, that the Judaic dream of world domination recurs with the greatest persistence. The Zohar indeed refers to this as a fait accompli, an accomplished fact, explaining that. So they think they've already taken over the world. It's an accomplished fact. I know they want to disarm us USA citizens, and they probably want to make it a little easier to take over the United States and take away everybody's property rights, force the new agenda, Agenda 21, using the lie, global warming, or ice age, as Czar Holder said, of the Obama regime. So it's all a lie. Sustainability, it's all a lie. They do have plans. The Zohar indeed refers to this as a fait accompli. So it's something that's already done. They control the world, they believe. They own everything, they believe. It's just a matter of timing. A big event, martial law. Is it what it appears to be? Explaining at the Feast of the Tabernacles is the period when Israel triumphs over the other people of the world. Remember, this is 1924. And if you look at history since then, they've been on their way to accomplish this. It was after World War I and prior to World War II. That is why during the feast, we seize the loom lab, branches of trees tied together, and carry it as a trophy to show that we have conquered all the other peoples known as populace and that we dominate them. Page 371. And I'm reading only my highlighted stuff. You can get the book in used book site, A Books or any place else, $5, $10, probably free shipping. So moving on here. So they shall not participate nor mingle, you, me, everybody after they take over the world, shall not participate or mingle with the joy of Israel when their God calls down the blessings from on high. What then does the king do? He orders the governors to be served with beef and vegetables, which are common food, and then he sits down to table with his friends and has the most delicious dishes served. So when they do take over, they're going to eat feast of delicious foods, and all the other people, their puppet masters, will be eating beef and vegetables, the common man's food. So all these people that are their puppet masters now will not be included in the glorious times for these New World domination freaks. That's what I call them. But this is nothing to the feasting that is to take place during when the Masonic era arrives. After the return of the Jews from all nations and parts of the world to Palestine. And we went over that in one of my previous videos, something called Aliyah, where the Jews are arriving in Israel every day for the last 60, 70 years. Boatloads, plane loads, having grand receptions and all that. You don't think this is real? Go look up Aliyah. Look at jpost.com. Don't believe anything I say. Go look for yourself. Look up Zionism in images and you will see the images on Yahoo search. Google search. There's the image website. So they're returning from all the nations and all parts of the world to Palestine. And they've convinced most USA people and world's people not to believe in God, that Christians are haters for not embracing the decadent, perverted sexual lifestyles. And they've made everybody believe that the Muslim, Islam, and Arabs are all evil. They control the politicians, the banks, and all these TVs and media and newspapers. Most people know this. So they're returning back to Palestine. The Messiah, we are told in the Talmud, will entertain them at a gorgeous banquet where they will be seated at golden tables and regaled with wine from Adam's wine cellar. The first course is to consist of roasted ox, named Behemoth. That's the devil's name, isn't it? So immense that every day it eats up the grass upon 1,000 hills. The second of a monstrous fish called Leviathan. Isn't that another name of a demon god? The third of a female Leviathan boiled and pickled. The fourth of a gigantic roast fowl, known of Barjusen. Probably saying this wrong. Of which the egg alone was so enormous that when it fell out of the nest, it crushed 300 tall cedars. And the white overflowed 80 villages. This course is to be followed up by the most splendid and pompous dessert that can be procured, including fruit from the tree of life. This is Rosicrucian occultism. And the pomegranates of Eden, which are preserved for the just. At the end of the banquet, God will entertain the company at a ball. God will be there at the ball. He himself will sit in the midst of them. This is in their Talmud. And everyone will point him out with a finger saying, "Behold, this is our God. We have waited for him, and we will be glad and rejoice in his salvation." They're going to rejoice. It's probably Lucifer, the cast out angel from heaven. The 18th century commenter, whose summary of these passages we quote, goes on to observe, "But let us see a little further of what manner the Jews are to live in their ancient country under the administration of the Messiah. In the first place, the strange nations which they shall suffer to live shall build them houses and cities, till the ground, and plant them vineyards." So the rest of us are going to build them houses to live, cities, till the ground, and plant them vineyards. It says here, I highlighted, Dratch shows that amongst the delights promised to the by the Talmud after the return to Palestine will be the permission to eat pork and bacon. All this without so much as looking for any reward for their labor. So we'll build their cities, till the ground, and plant vineyards, and we won't want any reward for our labor. We will be very happy slaves. So it says here. Those surviving nations, so whoever happens to survive, remember the Georgia USA Guidestone said they want to kill 85% of the people on the planet. Those surviving nations will likewise volunteer offer them all their wealth and furniture. The princes and nobles shall attend them, and be ready at their nod to pay them all manner of obedience, while they themselves shall be surrounded with grandeur and pleasure, appearing abroad in apparel glittering with jewels like priests of the unction consecrated to God. In a word, the felicity of this holy nation in the times of the Messiah will be such that the exalted condition of it cannot enter into the conception of man, much less can it be couched in human expression. This is what the rabbis say of it. But the intelligent reader will doubtless pronounce it as the paradise of fools. They want the New World Order. George Bush said it. Kissinger said it. The Pope said it. Obama said it. Everybody's saying it. They're working towards that end. The United Nations saying it. They're using global warming, global cooling, climate change, sustainability, all kinds of excuses and mind control. UFO, aliens, Ebola, plagues, terrorism, school shootings, comet hitting the Earth, Planet X, the destroyer coming, putting Kali and Shiva images up on the Empire State Building, goats on the Hoover Dam, that's a symbol for the devil, Shiva out in front of CERN, the 3 6s on CERN, all kinds of symbolism during football halftime shows, Shiva, Kali, demonic dances by Madonna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, and the rest of them. And this is what's written in this book. Sir George Adams Smith, after watching Zionism at work in 1918, remember the Russian Revolution by the Bolshevik Jews was in 1917, where they proceeded to kill about 100 million Christians and other good people. Destroy the Christian churches, but not destroy the Jewish temples. On visiting a recently established Jewish colony in the northeast of the land, round which a high wall had been built by the munificent patron, I found the colonists sitting in its shade gambling away the morning, with groups of fellahim at poor wage did the cultivation for them. So the Bolshevik Jewish people were sitting there gambling away, while the captured people of the nation were doing their work for them at a poor wage. A Jew replied to me in German, "Is it not written, the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and vine dressers?" I know that such delinquencies have become the exception in Jewish colonialism of Palestine, but they are symptomatic of dangers which will have to be guarded against. This is their attitude. This is what they want worldwide. And of course, not all Jews, remember, the ones who still go with the Torah or the Old Testament, get along with the world peacefully. Just like Christians or Islam, people lived in peace forever peacefully. But this Talmud Bible that they adhere to, plus the Kabbalah, the occultic magical book, tells them, instructs them on behavior that is not conducive to peaceful relationships between them and the places where they capture or reside. Hence, they were kicked out of France. They were kicked out of England, banned. Europe, trouble, thrown out of Russia. Even the land of Canaan, Palestine, now called Israel. They were thrown out of there. They were enslaved in Egypt. Why? It bodes one to ask why. And it's not anti-Semitic to want to know why, who is messing with our world, taking over the Federal Reserve in 1913, December 21, while our congressmen were on vacation, in cahoots with Woodrow Wilson, who conspired to bring America into World War I because the Rothschilds had promised England that if England promised to give them the Palestinians' land after the war. The Falahan may, I guess these are the poor people, however, consider themselves lucky to be allowed to live at all. So the people that they had enslaved doing the work for them considered it lucky to be alive at all. For according to several passages in the Kabbalah now, all the goyim are to be swept off the face of the earth. This is in the Kabbalah. Isn't Madonna into the Kabbalah? When Israel comes into its own. Thus the Zohar relates that the Messiah will declare war on the whole world, and all the kings of the world will end by declaring war on the Messiah. But the Holy One, blessed be He, will display His force and exterminate them from the world. Then, happy will be the lot of Israel, when the Holy One, blessed be He, has chosen amongst the goyim, of who the scriptures say, their work is but vanity. Their work is but vanity. It is an illusion at which we must laugh. They will all perish when God visits them in His wrath. At the moment when the Holy One, blessed be He, will exterminate all the goyim of the world. This is anybody that's not Jewish. Israel alone will subsist. Even as it is written, the Lord alone will appear great in that day. The hope of world domination is therefore not an idea attributed to the Jews by anti-Semites, but is a very real and essential part of their traditions. We have already seen that hatred of the person and teaching of Christ did not end at Golgotha, but was kept alive by the rabbis and perpetrated in the Talmud and the Toletot Yesha, another book I suppose. The Kabbalah also contains passages referring to both Christ and Muhammad, so unspeakably foul that it would be impossible to quote them here. Oh my. But it will be urged, the Jews of Western Europe today know nothing of the Kabbalah. They may be so, yet imperceptibly the Kabbalah has molded the mind of the Jew. So a lot of the Western Jews here in Europe and in the United States are not aware of the Kabbalah, are not into this stuff. This may be so. Yet imperceptibly, the Kabbalah has molded the mind of the Jew. So they're saying here that a lot of people that are not into it may still have a detrimental attitude towards the rest of us. Will they go along with the program, with the other Jews? I know that the bad Jews cause a lot of problems for the good Jews who don't want to go along and stay with the party line. As a modern Jewish writer has declared, Kabbalism has contributed to the formation of modern Judaism, for without the influence of the Kabbalah, Judaism today might have been one-sided, lacking in warmth and imagination. This element has not only become incorporated, but it has fixed its hold on the affections of the Jews and cannot be eradicated. This is Nestor Webster's opinion in this book. Meanwhile, the First Amendment is still the law of the land constitutional, which they want to eliminate, by the way. And in some countries, it's probably illegal to be reading this and making a video. Just saying. This stuff is not pleasant to read. It is thus not in the law of Moses, thundered from Sinai. It is thus not in the law of Moses, thundered from Sinai, nor in the dry ritual of the Talmud, but in the stupendous imaginings of the Kabbalah, that the real dreams and aspirations of Jewry have been transmitted through the ages. Belief in the coming Messiah may burn low, but faith in the final triumph of Israel, of the race nurtured on this hope from time immemorial, forever. Even the free-thinking Jew must unconsciously react to the promptings of this vast and ancient ambition. As a modern French writer has expressed it, assuredly sectarian freethinkers swarm, who flatter themselves on having borrowed nothing from the synagogue and on hating equally Jehovah and Jesus. So these magic Jews into magic, the Kabbalah, they borrowed nothing from the synagogue and on hating equally Jehovah and Jesus. But the modern Jewish world is itself also detached from any supernatural belief. A lot of people don't even believe in God, don't believe they have souls. A lot of people have been programmed to not believe that, and this is what they wanted to do. The modern Jewish world is itself also detached from any supernatural belief. And the Masonic tradition, of which it preserves the cult, reduces itself to considering the Jewish race as the veritable Messiah. Crazy stuff. According to the teaching of the liberal Spanish synagogue, the beautiful passages in the 53rd chapter of Isaiah concerning the man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, usually supposed by Christians to relate to the promised Messiah, are interpreted to modern Jewish youth as relating to Israel, and signifying that Israel's sufferings were caused by the sins of other nations, who thus escaped the suffering they deserved. So all their problems were caused by the sins of other nations, and these other nations escaped the suffering they deserved. So I suppose they want to punish the world for all their sufferings. Consequently, Israel has suffered for the sake of the whole world. This is what they think. Thousands of years of suffering, they have done this for the world. Like Jesus suffered and died on the cross so that our sins could be forgiven. They hold themselves in high esteem. How this amazing pretension can be maintained in view of the perpetual denunciations of the Israelites throughout the whole of the Old Testament is difficult to imagine. And the Old Testament denounces their behavior many times, things they have done. On their entry into Canaan, they were distinctly told by Moses that the land that the Lord their God had not given them this good land on account of their righteousness or the uprightness of their hearts. So when they were given the land, Moses told them it wasn't because they were righteous and uprighteous in their heart. That's not why God gave them the land. Long afterwards, Daniel declared that all Israel had transgressed, and the law of God, transgressed the law of God. Nehemiah showed that on account of their rebellion, here we go, and disobedience, they had been delivered into the hands of their enemies. Isaiah spoke of the inequities of Judah in the burning words. In burning words, Isaiah spoke of the inequities of Judah, the Jews. Esther Webster, go look her up on Wikipedia, I did. Much more intelligent, knowledgeable person than me. Wrote many books. Thus, even the Word of God itself is powerless to mitigate the immense megalomania of the Jewish race. It is doubtful, indeed, whether by the majority of Jews the Bible is now regarded as divinely inspired. And from my research, apparently it's illegal to have the New Testament or bring them into Israel and hand them out and preach about Jesus or Christianity. They are promoting in the media and everything that Jesus was a myth, and that worshiping Jesus or Christianity is idol worship, punishable by death. and that it's better to be gay and have crazy, insane sex with people and cheat on your spouses and do adultery and change your sex, and in the high schools and grade schools have bender gender parties. The boys come dressed as girls and the girl come dressed as boys. And of course, Ashley Madison and cheat on your spouse in secrecy, guaranteed. And who owns all these media, publishing houses, movie stuff, newspapers? Secret societies and subversive movements. So there is a spiritual battle apparently going on here. It is doubtful indeed whether by the majority of Jews the Bible is now regarded as divinely inspired. So it is doubtful that the majority of Jews think that the Bible regarded as divinely inspired. And let's think about why they hated Jesus. What did Jesus do? He was healing people, made the blind see, made the deaf hear, the leper he cured, Lazarus he raised from the dead, fed a bunch of people, made multitudes of wine out of water, took a basket full of fish and made multitudes amount of fish. Taught love and treat your neighbors as you would like to be treated. And the people who were in charge of Judea at that time, King Solomon's temple, the priest, despised that teaching. Remember, these are people who have megalomanias. They think they should rule the world and everybody is goyim cattle. Can't make this stuff up. Moving on. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. Wash make you clean, put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do well. That's probably a good suggestion. Thus, even the word of God itself is powerless to mitigate the immense megalomania of the Jewish race. It is doubtful, indeed, whether by the majority of Jews the Bible is now regarded as divinely inspired. The Ten Commandments, which we gave to mankind, is a phrase typical of the manner in which Israel now arrogates itself the sole authorship of the Scriptures. So they say they gave us the Ten Commandments, yet they don't abide by the Ten Commandments. The deification of humanity by the Freemasons of the Grand Orient finds its counterpart in the deification of Israel by the modern Jew. We've gone over, this series is called Freemasonry and Satanism. And I read books, and in the books what I read have little citations, little tiny letters, and then on the bottom it tells you where they got the material from. So as you can see, Nestor Webster has referenced all her work on the bottom here. Where she got her information. I got a comment from part 1, and one guy said that everything here was debunked, and he admitted he was a Freemason. His little logo was a Freemason symbol. So I do get some hate mail from people who take it the wrong way. The witchcraft people obviously aren't going to love me. Jewish people are not going to love me. Masonic people, Illuminati, banksters, crooks, and mafia types are not going to love me. And of course, not all Jews are in on this. A lot of Jews go to the Old Testament and are good citizens. Why should I have to be doing this? It seems that some people that are in a better position than me, who are Jewish and know the truth of the Old Testament, should speak out. And I'm sure some of them are, like the books I read by Rabbi Marvin Antelman, PhD author Henry Macau of Canada, who wrote Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. Serious writers like Nestor Webster, and many others. Thousands of videos, and people on the internet trying to warn us, Infowars.com. David Icke, Text Mars, Steve Quayle. And I get accusations on the comment section saying that I'm insane. Get back on my medication. Mentally disturbed for reading this stuff. When will they ban these books? In many countries, it is illegal to be learning this stuff. And you can go get the book and check the references. Do not believe me. I'm not promoting hate. I want to avoid the New World Order. I want to avoid them trying to confiscate the guns and create more insanity, anarchy, and chaos in the world, in the U.S., like George Bush Sr. said was going to happen. The 1,000 points of light, all the occultic goings-on, satanic shows. During the football halftime show, during the Grammys, during the Emmys, during the Olympic openings, the paintings on the wall in Denver Airport. Go look at them up the murals. See the death and mayhem they're predicting. Page 376. It is here that we must surely see the cause of much of the suffering the Jews have endured in the past. No one, of course, would justify the cruelty with which they have frequently been treated. Nevertheless, to maintain that there was no provocation on the part of the Jews would be absurd. So we agree that some of the treatment they have endured was horrible. But what brought it about? Thinking the rest of us are cattle is enough to probably be a problem. A race that has always considered itself entitled to occupy a privileged position amongst the nations of the world must inevitably meet with the resentment, and in the primitive age of population, the primitive age or population resentment is apt to find a vent in violence shocking to the civilized mind. Moreover, to respect the Jews as a gentle, long-suffering people, always the victim but never the perpetrators of the violence, is absolutely contrary to historic fact. In the dark ages of the past, the Jews showed themselves perfectly capable of cruelties not only toward other races, but toward each other. One of the first pogroms recorded in the Christian era was carried out by the Jews themselves. The Jewish historian Josephus describes the reign of lawlessness and barbarity that was inaugurated amongst the middle of the 1st century A.D. by a band of assassins known as the Sicarii, who infested the country around Jerusalem by means of little daggers that they wore concealed beneath their garments. They slew men in the daytime in the midst of the city, especially at the festivals when they mixed with the multitude. During one night raid on a small town in England, they massacred more than 700 women and children. And Josephus goes on to say, wow, they had little daggers and they were just running around mass killing people. A bunch of little Jack the Rippers. Yikes. Somehow, indeed, that was a time most fertile in all manner of wicked practices among the Jews, insomuch that no kind of villainy was then left undone. I'm not reading everything here. So deeply were they all infected, but privately and publicly, and vied with one another, who should run the greatest lengths of impiety towards God. Break the commandments and do more sins. Who should do the most? And witchcraft too, by the way, these days. The witches, I suppose, have to break a commandment every day. And I guess the worst commandment they break, the higher up they move. And of course, the worst commandment is killing somebody and sacrificing them. So to aspire to greatness as a witch, I suppose you have to kill somebody. I never heard that about the other organizations. I shall not mention here on this video. But to gain admittance and get accepted, you have to murder somebody at random in Virginia Beach. think you can look at that video where that woman speaker confesses about being an insider of the Illuminati. She exposes that. Oh my. Even one guy, a popular rock star, exposes going to snuff parties. Oh my. Miles Johnston, the Basis series, look it up. Oh my. Project Montauk, MK Ultra, Paperclip. Oh my. The Dungeons and Tortures, World War I, World War II. Oh my. So they had to go to the greatest lengths to do the worst things towards God. And in unjust actions towards their neighbors. So they aspired to do unjust action toward their neighbors. Men in power oppressing the multitude, and the multitude earnestly endeavoring to destroy men in power. It is futile then to maintain, as do the Jews and their friends, for the pro-Jew is frequently, plus royalty, that all the faults of the modern Jew are to be attributed to bitterness engendered by persecution. Judaism has always contained an element of cruelty which finds expression in the Talmud. Now let's be clear again. Do I think all Jews are these people? Of course I don't. Are there some in existence? Are they part of the Jesuits? The Zionists? We can look on the jpost.com. We can see Elia happening. What's said in this book, they're all returning to Israel. We went over some other books. The American Jew that went to Israel, his talk, his confession, his exposure, and all the other books I did. The Jewish Utopia by Professor Higgins. So, and I know it's not just Jews. I know that these people have bribed and paid and recruited Christians and other atheists and other people, our politicians and presidents and the United Nations with the meditation room, which is all about the occult. And they're operating on the Agenda 21. They want to take away the weapons. They're promoting the decadent sects. They're murdering the Arabs in Syria. They just signed the Pacific Trade Agreement, which is further going to destroy the United States. And even congressmen and representatives aren't allowed to read it. The Pacific Trade Agreement. All this happened was going on. While it was getting signed, they had that college shooting with that guy. Where apparently the college was given $1 million, I looked up. And they had a police instruction school going on, doing exercises like that. Which the other shootings seem to have had some other stuff going on that is very questionable. And lots of videos on YouTube are saying that it was all government orchestrated events to convince the peoples of America that they needed to be disarmed. And then we read this. Okay, I highlighted some little notes on the bottom. See, for example, the descriptions of the horrible cruelty practiced in the Jewish schools of Poland in the 18th century, given in the autobiography of Solomon Merriman, M-A-I-M-O-N. So there's all kinds of evidence going out there. So all kinds of elements of cruelty finds expression in the Talmud. And by the way, another commenter on my videos sent me a comment that apparently on the rabbinic schools, where you go to college to be a rabbi, there are Talmudic schools and Torahmitic schools from the Torah, however you say the words. And apparently, for quite a long time, there haven't been any Torah rabbis graduating or produced. They're all Talmud, and that's the evil book. And I suspect, as I've said before, during World War II, when a lot of Jews were rounded up, they were probably Torah Jews, Old Testament Jews, that wouldn't go along with the Talmud Jews. And as we know, Hitler and a lot of his military, in high places, they were probably Talmud Jewish leaders in charge. So the evil Jews worshiping Lucifer, I suspect, and Satan, had to kill the good Jews who wouldn't go along with the Zionist state of Israel and the New World Order. Just my putting two and two together. So it is from the Talmud, not the Mosaic law, that the inhuman methods of Jewish slaughtering are derived. Jewish slaughtering. The Talmud likewise gives the most horrible directions for carrying out capital punishment, particularly with regard to women. Oh my. By the methods of stoning, burning, choking, or slaying with the sword. The victim condemned to be burnt is to have a scarf wound round their neck, the two ends pulled tightly with a scarf around your neck while you're being burned to death. By the executioners, while the mouth is pulled open, and I guess they pour in some molten fiery stuff down your throat. A lighted string is thrust into it. Oh my. So that it flows down the throat through his inwards and shrinks his entrails, your stomach, your gut. So they want to burn you from the inside while you're burning from the outside, while they're choking you. It will be said that all this belongs to the past. Yeah, go watch Miles Johnston, the Basis series. Go see some of the people talk about the Illuminati goings on during their ceremonies. The Satanist ceremonies, the sacrificing of people. Go look on YouTube. See some of these people. Get some books. I've got some books. We the people, Jewish people, Christian people, non-religious people, Muslims, Hindu, Buddhists, we all need to put a stop to this evil satanic goings on. Whatever race you are. So it's not every Jewish person. Just saying, we can see what's going on in the world. Manipulation of the stock market. All kinds of other stuff. It's hard to read some of this stuff. It will be said that all this belongs to the past. True. The practice here described may be considered obsolete, but the spirit of cruelty and intolerance that dictated it is still alive. And we all know about Cuba, Gitmo, waterboarding, 9/11, the fake school shootings, Boston bombing, all this stuff where these people seem to be under mind control. Slaughtering of Arabs in Syria right now.
Speaking of
wanting to
Gitmo,
destroy Iran.
Here's George Bush carrying a Talmud. The book with lots of evil text, goings on in it. Why is he carrying a Talmud? And here's another photo I found on the Talmudic website. A rabbi doing the devil sign. Obama doing the devil sign. Bush's daughter doing the devil sign. So when you talk about Jewish people, you got Torah Jews or Talmudic Jews, and apparently the Talmudic Jews are in Zionism, and Theosophy, the New Age cult stuff, is involved in this, as well as Nazism. The Skull and Bones that George Bush, John Kerry, George Bush's father, many people come from. Then they have the microwave transmitters all over the world they're installing. Do they plan on destroying the people like the Talmud says? Then they have Agenda 21. Do they plan on destroying the world like the Talmud says? And then we know that Madonna's into the Kabbalah. No doubt about it. There's the Illuminati on her shirt. So much of this stuff is verifiable if people will just look. We do not see things as they are. We see them as we are, the Talmud. Look at this guy here that was into the Talmud. He's got the sword in his hand and bodies everywhere. Here they're burning the Talmud. Throughout history, it's been known as an evil book. This is the group of Jewish people that I suspect we need to worry about, who are not the same as the religious Jews who are into the Old Testament or the Torah. The everyman's Talmud. What does it all mean with all these people moving to Israel in Aliyah, the return? Here's another Talmud picture right here. They're standing on a bunch of bodies, and look at the Russian symbol on that little flag. I guess George Bush in this picture is giving Obama some Talmuds for dummies. Pause your computer and read what this says here. You won't believe it. Here's a funny. Run for your life. He's a Talmud terrorist. You will die before you win an argument. The Talmud tested. So go look up Talmud and images on Yahoo or Google search, and you'll see what I saw. Some very strange things going on with our leaders into these dark books. Here's George Bush and the menorah, the Jewish symbol. What's going on? Shouldn't we ask questions?
Well, those were some interesting pictures. Go look up Talmud and images or Talmud pictures on Yahoo search or Google search, and you'll see a lot more. So apparently the Talmud is a guidebook for destroying mankind and enslaving the people, those they allow to live, as we have been reading about. And it appears that the devil sign, I guess you could say it's the same thing as the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Zionists, the Church of Satan, Rosicrucian, Hollywood, banksters. All these people are into witchcraft. That would equal the Talmud. Now the good Jews are into the Torah or the Old Testament. So when one speaks ill of the Jews, they must be talking about the Talmudic Jews. And when they talk about Jews they get along with and that are their friends, they're talking about Jews that are not into the Talmud, maybe even atheists. Torah, the Old Testament, maybe even converted to Christianity. So when you're talking about Jews, you can't put them all in one group. That's not the case. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But we do have some evil forces out there, and I don't care about freedom of religion when it comes to the Church of Satan and Lucifer and the devil. You can't abduct people and sacrifice them to death and drink their blood and eat them, and pedophilia with children and destroy the economy and hate the human race. I'm against that. I'm anti that, if I'm anti anything. You can't be promoting the homosexuality and the decadent lifestyle. Ashley Madison committing adultery against one of God's commandments, number 7. Thou shalt not commit adultery. But the Talmud says to even steal and murder and everything. Covet what other people want. Bear false witness. Don't save somebody. You see them being hanged and you know they're innocent. You don't run over there and tell the truth. The Talmud says let them die. That's what I'm reading here. So why don't I continue reading from this book? One has only to study the modern Jewish press to realize the persecution to which the Jews are subjected from members. Persecution from which Jews are subjected from members of their own race, should they infringe one fraction of the Jewish code. So the Talmudic Jews are in charge. The evil book says let somebody die if they're injured and dying. Don't try to save them. So the good Jews, like I said before, if you're in Israel and you start preaching Christianity, or you have to convert to Christianity, hand out some New Testaments, Jesus material, you're likely to find a bomb in your mailbox. If then the modern Jew is the product of the Talmud, it is here that we must see the principal obstacle to Jewish progress. It is said that Isaac Disraeli, the father of Lord Beaconsfield, gave as his reason for withdrawing from the synagogue that Rabbinic Judaism, with its unyielding laws and fettering customs, cuts off the Jews from the great family of mankind. So here's a Jew who left the synagogue for that very reason, the Talmud. Such a system is indeed absolutely incompatible not only with Christian teaching, but with the secular idea of Western civilization. The attitude it adopts towards women would be in itself sufficient to justify this assertion. The Jewish daily prayer, "Blessed be thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe. Blessed be thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, that thou hast not made me a woman." They're praising and thanking God they weren't made a woman. Who would do that? It is a ludicrous anachronism in the present age. So yeah, that is a ludicrous prayer in the present age. According to the Talmud, a service can take place in a synagogue if 10 persons are present. Drach explains, however, those persons must be all men. If then there were 9 men and 1,000,000 women, there could be no assembly, no church services, for the reason that women are nothing, according to the Talmud, the Jews. But there arrives on the scene only one small boy of 13 years and a day, and they can hold a service. I'm reading my notes at the bottom here. This custom is still in force. See the very legitimate complaint of a Jewish woman in the Jewish World, December 21, 1923. Remember, this book was written in 1924. That women are still regulated to the gallery, to be hidden behind the grill, whence they may hear their menfolk bless the Almighty in the strict strident tones that thou not made me a woman. So the women are behind the curtain, hearing the men pray, thanking God they weren't made a woman. So, but if the 10th person is a 13-year-old boy in one day, they can hold a service, but not with 1,000,000 women and 9 men. When, therefore, we say that we must respect the Jewish religion, we cannot, if we know anything about it, mean that we respect that portion of it which is founded on the Rabbinic tradition of the Talmud and the Kabbalah. Those are some interesting pictures I showed you. Go look them up on the Yahoo search or Google search or whatever. Talmud pictures. But only that ethical law set forth in the Old Testament, to which right-living Jews have faithfully adhered, and which is largely in accord with Christian teaching. Let us not forget that Rabbinic Judaism is the declared and implacable. Let us not forget that Rabbinic Judaism is the declared enemy of Christianity. Page 378. Hatred of Christianity and of the person of Christ is not a matter of remote history, nor can it be regarded as the result of persecution. It forms an integral part of the Rabbinic tradition, which originated before any persecution of the Jews by Christians had taken place, and has continued in our country long after all such persecution has ended. And as we know with the Freemasons, Illuminati, and even with the New Age and New World Order propaganda that we're being fed daily, TV programs and all that, they do hate Christians. They intend to destroy Christians. and make probably the religion illegal, as they have announced that Jesus was a myth. And if we're worshiping a myth, it's idol worship, worshiping an idol, which is punishable by death. Crazy. It is here that we cannot fail to detect the origin of much of the virulent anti-Christian teaching that is being disseminated in our midst today. 1924. And it's a lot worse now. Now, because if we don't embrace the homosexual, gay agenda, perverted pedophilia and all that, you're called a hater. And they've demonized the Muslims and Islam. And a lot of people, according to the comments I read on press releases, really buy the story that all those Arabs are evil. And those same people will buy the story that all the Christians worldwide are evil. And we've got the Lucifer devil-worshipping sign people using the symbol everywhere, and the 3 6s on CERN and Shiva out front and on the Empire State Building, the goat on the Hoover Dam, halftime shows in football, Grammys, Emmys, Olympic openings with all these demonic Indiana Jones demonic rituals, dances and ceremonies, even dressed up with the horns on Madonna, Katy Perry, and all those people. You almost got to be a knucklehead not to see this. And I'm learning as I go here. There's some stuff I'm reading in this book I didn't know. It gets more gruesome as I move along. All right, moving on. These consist of desecrating the Christian tradition by declaring that Christ was either 1, a myth, 2, a purely human teacher endowed with the superior virtue and knowledge of natural laws. That would be witchcraft, if you're using them for evil. And, or number 3, that Jesus was a crazy fanatic, they would have people believe. And again, according to the comments I read on a lot of press releases, they've convinced all these people all over the United States who are dressed up like zombies with skull and bones tattooed all over their bodies, that Jesus was a crazy fanatic and a malefactor. The first 2 theories are, as we have seen, those held by secret societies. So it seems like these Talmud-worshipping Jewish folks are in the same boat, same rituals, same beliefs as the secret societies who swear on a Bible under threat of death to keep everything a secret. And running around thinking they're better than the rest of us, calling us non-fraternal organizations like Freemasons, Illuminati, Rosicrucian, etc. They call us profane. H.G. Wells said we were all nothing more than animals not to be trusted. The Jews call us goyim, cattle, and animals. So the last is essentially Jewish. So the Jewish people think that Jesus was a crazy fanatic. Talmud Jews. It is true that there is now a movement among the more enlightened Jews to recognize Jesus as a great teacher. So far, unfortunately, this is met by bitter hostility from the rest, and in the current Jewish press, contemporaries, in the current Jewish press, contemptuous, gotta get some of these words down, and even blasphemous references to Christ and the Christian faith frequently occur. The fact that here in England, for nearly 300 years, the Jews have been allowed to dwell in peace and carry out their religious rites unmolested, and that they have been admitted to society, to Masonic lodges, and to all offices of state, have met with increasing tolerance and favor. So they've been treated good, but it has done nothing to moderate that hatred of Christianity inculcated throughout 19 centuries of rabbinic teaching. So no matter how good you treat these Talmudic Jewish folks, their hatred of Christianity continues. We've gone over a lot of books. And it should be obvious to anybody who takes the time out to watch these videos or go get these books to verify what I say, because I don't want anybody to believe me. Go get the book. I'm just giving these videos as a guide. I read the books and then I do a book review and my commentary. Moving on, what Christianity has meant. We read in a modern Jewish periodical. We are thinking of what Christianity is. We are thinking of what Christianity as an institution has meant to us Jews. The 20 centuries of its existence have been convolved with a long-drawn tragedy of the Jews' dispersal among the nations. What kindliness and consideration we have received at the hands of the Christianity has for the most part been tendered with the lure of the baptismal font. To the extent to which Christianity's embodiment, the church has been prescient, has the Jewish tragedy deepened. So the nicer we Christians are to them, the more the tragedy deepens. Only when and where the church has been weak has life been tolerable for the Jew. Hatred of the Jew, anti-Jewish outbursts, and anti-Semitic campaigns are traceable to nothing so surely as to the antipathy to the Jew which has been imbued in Christianity. So when you actually anti-Jewish outbursts and anti-Semite campaigns, it seems to actually make them happier and more united in each other. There is thus precious little about which the Jew has for rejoicing and gladness in the institution of Christianity, etc. Sometimes it's difficult to read somebody else's writing, especially somebody so smart as Nestor Webster using these words in 1924 when I'm used to the 2015 speak. Moving on, the most cursory study of history would reveal the falseness of this contention. The antipathy to the Jew began long before the Christian era. So it wasn't when Christ came along for the last 2,000 years that their troubles began, right? Remember, 1,000 years before that, they were slaves in Egypt. So long before Christianity era, in Egypt, Persia, and Rome, he became, whether just or not, the object of suspicion to rulers. So 1,000 years before Jesus was born, in Egypt, Persia, and Rome, the Jews were the object of suspicion to rulers. What were they doing? The reason given by Pharaoh for oppressing the Israelites was that if they were allowed to grow too powerful, they might join themselves to the enemy in time of war. The emperors of Rome regarded them as a turbulent element. Muhammad declared, their aim will be to abet disorder on the earth. But God loveth not the abettors of disorder. So the Jews apparently are revolutionary people. They create the revolutions. They like to create disorder. If you go look up George Bush and images, pictures, you'll see a lot of symbolism that seems to suggest, he even has that Jewish hat on, a little thing, at the Wailing Wall over there in Jerusalem. And he seems to be acting like he's, I guess, a Talmudic Jewish person. Even his daughter, you saw, was doing this. Just saying. It is what it is. It was not simply the possession of wealth, which according to the socialist creed should justify any amount of hatred, but the manner in which it was acquired and the arrogance with which it was displayed that roused popular feeling against the Jews. So the Jews who were in charge, the Talmudic Jews, Israel, Zionism, Illuminati, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Church of Satan, who want to bring about communism, enslavement of the human race, while these people here are going to live in opulence. They're going to live like kings and feast and food, and everybody else lives like an animal. That's why they call them goyim. An Arab Fakin, Abu Ishaq of Ivara, thus warned his master of the growing power of the Jews in Spain in the middle of the 11th century. And I've got some notes here on the bottom. The Jews, contemptible outcasts, have become great lords, and their pride and arrogance knows no bounds. Take not such men for thy ministers, and we have a lot of them now as the Zionist Christian ministers, Baptists and all that, pro-Zionists, misleading their flock to send their money to Israel. But abandon them to the curses, for the whole earth crieth out against them. Ere long it will quake, and we shall all perish. Turn thy eyes to other lands, and behold how the Jews are treated as dogs and kept apart. All right, moving on. I came to Granada, and there I beheld the Jews reigning, in charge. They had parceled out all the provinces, and the capital between them. Everywhere one of these accursed ruled. Everywhere one of these accursed ruled. They collected the taxes. They made good cheer. They were sumptuously clad, while your garments, O Muslims, were old and worn out. All the secrets of state were known to them. Yet is it folly to put trust in traitors. While believers ate the bread of poverty, they dined delicately in the palace. How can we thrive if we live in the shade and the Jews dazzle us with the glory of their pride? Sometimes it's harder to read this stuff. In medieval France, the chief cause for complaint against the Jews is that of not working with their hands, but of enriching themselves in excessive usury interest rates. In the 15th century, the Strasbourg preacher Geiler asked, "Why are the Jews above the Christians? Why will they not work with their hands? Practicing usury is not working. It is exploiting others while remaining idle." Such quotations as these might be multiplied to infinity. To attribute the persecution of the Jews to Christianity is therefore ludicrous. That in a less enlightened age, the Church should have adopted rigorous measures, although no more rigorous than their own laws demanded, against those Jews who practiced magic and witchcraft. I keep saying those words. It's right here in this book. Page 380. Must appear deplorable to the modern mind. And so must many other phases of medieval life. Why then hark back perpetually to the past? If the Jews were persecuted in a less enlightened age, so were many other sections of the community. Catholics were persecuted. Protestants were persecuted. Men were placed in stocks for minor offenses. Those things where you stick your arms and your head in. Scolding women were dunked in the village pond. But if all these cruelties of the Dark Age are to be remembered and perpetuated on the plan of a tribal blood feud, what peace can there be for the world? So if these Jewish Talmud people are going to fester with a blood feud and hatred towards Christianity, even today, it's clearly obvious, there can never be peace in the world. The disastrous results of this tendency were seen in the Irish intellectuals, nourished from infancy on the story of Ireland's wrongs, who instead of sanely facing present problems, unhinged their minds by brooding on historic grievances, thereby sealing their own doom and plunging their country into ruin. So the Irish wouldn't give up on their historic grievances and plunging their country into doom and ruin. Emerson, the prophet of sanity, declared, "The only ballast I know is a respect to the present hour. It is for lack of this ballast that the Jews have become victims of the fanaticism in which Christians, from a mistaken idea of kindness, have frequently encouraged them." So the more kind we are, the more it reminds them that they killed Jesus, maybe. So they'd probably feel better if they were their enemy. In reality, nothing is more cruel than to encourage in the minds of a nervous race the idea of persecution. True kindness to the Jews would consist in urging them to throw off memories of past martyrdom and to enter healthfully into the enjoyment of the present blessings, which are the direct outcome of the Christian civilization. And the good civilization that we've experienced has been because of Christianity. And worldwide, everybody is aware of it. They're trying to destroy Christianity. They've discredited it by inserting, I suspect, fake Christians and doing outlandish things and exposing it in the media, making Christianity out to be something horrible. And it probably, a lot of it has turned horrible because the leaders in charge are all evil. Probably Talmudic imposters, really Jewish people from the evil side, the dark side. Just saying. Let us consider what Christianity has in reality done for the Jews. If so much is to be said about the persecutions they have endured, what of the extraordinary indulgence shown them as a result of Christian respect for the Bible? For hundreds of years, Christian school children have been brought up on the Old Testament history, and Christian congregations have listened with sympathy to the story of Israel's sufferings and hopes for a final restoration. All of the support lent to Zionism arose from this tradition. So the state of Israel would not exist right now if it weren't for the Christian support. Christianity, then, so reviled by the Jews, has been their greatest protection. If Christianity goes, the whole theory that the Jews were once the chosen people goes with it as far as the Gentiles are concerned, and the Jewish race, divested in its halo a divine flavor, will have to be judged on its own merits. So if they destroy Christianity, then of course they destroy their own claim to be the chosen people if nobody believes in the Bible. So what are we doing? In our own country, the chosen people theory has in fact been carried to the point of superstition. A superstition immensely advantageous to the Jews, which consists in interpreting the passage of Scripture containing the promise made to Abraham. I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that cursed thee, as meaning that favor shown to the Jews, who form merely a fraction of the seed of Abraham, bring with its particular blessings. In reality, it would be easier to show by history that countries and rulers who have protected the Jews have frequently met with disaster. France banished the Jews in 1394, and again in 1615, and did not readmit them in large numbers till 1715 and 1719, so that they were absent throughout the most glorious period in French history. So when they were gone, French had a glorious history. Whilst their return coincided with the Regency, from which moment the monarchy of France was said to have declined. England likewise banished the Jews in 1290, and it was during the 3.5 centuries they remained in exile that she was known as Merry England, Merry Old England. The fact that their return in force in 1664, which followed the next year by the Great Plague, and the year after by the Great Fire in London, would not appear to indicate that the Jews necessarily brought good fortune to the land that protects them. I guess I'll end this video there and continue on with this chapter, The Real Jewish Peril. Seems very interesting material. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.